Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. We're going to talk some Packers and 49ers in this podcast, leading up to a big-time matchup coming up this weekend. Obviously, these two teams are very familiar with each other, with the 49ers having the advantage as of late. So we're going to get to that, keys to victory, key matchups, all that good stuff coming up here as well. So before that, though, if you are in Wisconsin, it is a big weekend coming up here. It is the opener of the upcoming deer season, deer gun season here. So anybody who's listening, if you are a hunter, best of luck. Be safe out there. Create some memories. If you have any luck, send us a message. Send us a photo. It can be a voicemail or text or anything like that. Let me know how you're doing on the field. Send me a photo, too, of deer camp holding up some Man Cave Light. Okay, go grab some Man Cave Light at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire and take a photo of deer camp, of everybody at deer camp having a Man Cave Light, if they're of age, of course. But definitely, I'll be out there this year. My son's going to be sitting, too young yet to hunt himself there, but my 7-year-old's going to sit a couple days with me, so that's going to be pretty awesome, pretty dang cool as a dad to experience that. So looking forward to that. I just hope I'm able to get a deer with him there too. So that's going to be really, really awesome. And I still remember, obviously, Hudson's not going to be hunting, but I remember my first time sitting. It was the year before I could go hunting. So I remember that. I remember it. I remember that first day almost from beginning to end there. But then I remember my first deer. And it was kind of a tradition too. First-time hunters, we would have to use a bolt-action, no-scope, 30-30. And so that's what I used my first year hunting. And I missed like every deer that day. I only had one tag. It had to be a doe or a buck. And, usually you'd hold out for a buck. But when that first doe came by, it's like you're a 12-year-old and you're getting antsy and you want to get that deer, and I missed every single deer. I still remember I saw 30 deer that day, over 30 deer. I think it was 32. It was a ton. And I saw the biggest deer in my life and it was like straight on, maybe like 50 yards in front of me. Instead of just grabbing the gun, I got up and, was just like, oh my God, there's a big deer right there. Just letting everybody know, like letting my grandpa know that there's a deer there. And instead of just grabbing the gun and shooting it, biggest mistake right there. But you live and you learn, right? Missed a bunch of other deer that day until the end of the day. Went to go sit with hang out with my Aunt Kath. And we were just kind of talking, and I noticed a doe. So she got down, doe ran by, because I saw another deer coming, and came through the shooting lane, hit it on the run. I missed how many deer in front of me? Like 5 yards. There was one I missed like 5 yards, 10, 15 yards. I think I missed like 3 deer that day leading up to it. But this one, like 50 yards on the run, I hit it, and I actually hit it in the head. And my first deer ended up being a 5-pointer using a bolt-action 30-30 no-scope on there. So I remember that day. I remember everything about that day, and I remember everything about the year before too. The first time I actually sat with family for the first day of deer gun season. So hoping to create some memories with my son too. But before we get to that, because we do take voicemails and texts now, we've got a voicemail from a listener that wants to wish everybody a very safe and successful hunt. So big thanks for sending that over. And then after that, we're going to get right into some Packers 49ers talk. All right, let's get to the Man Cave Hotline.
What is up, DK? It's that time of the year, the great white-tailed deer hunt. One of the best times of the year. License is bought, gun sighted in, clothing is out, that lovely blaze orange coloring, just waiting for the day to go. 41st opening weekend in a row for myself in the illustrious Bayfield County town of Barnes, Wisconsin. Good luck to all the hunters out there. Take care.
Big thanks to one of our listeners for sending that on over. And again, best of luck and be safe to our fellow hunters out there. Let's talk some football. Chatting some Packers 49ers. We know the history. The 49ers have kind of had the Packers number here as of late, right? I think that's fair to say here. 49ers, the team that knocked out the Packers from the postseason last year, as we usually do. Let's see how each of these teams have racked up and kind of ranked throughout the rest of the NFL. Let's start on the offensive side. This is a team that is, or both these teams are top 5 in terms of total offense in the league, yards per game. So even with the injuries to San Francisco, they've been still putting up some yards. They're second in the entire league in terms of yards per game, averaging 398.9. The only team that's above them, the Baltimore Ravens, nearly 32 more yards per game. They're averaging 430 per game. Packers are fourth, 388.2 yards per game. If we break it down in terms of passing, 49ers are a top 5 team in terms of passing yards per game, 251.1. So that is that's fourth highest in the league. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Green Bay's ninth, 238.2 yards per game. Rushing, Green Bay, slight advantage, but both teams are in the top 10. Green Bay's fourth in the National Football League in terms of running the football, 149.9. 5, 6, 7. San Francisco is seventh. Remember, though, they got Christian McCaffrey back last week. San Francisco still averaging 147.8 yards per game on the ground. In terms of points, they're neck and neck. They're so neck and neck that they're tied. Top 10, both Green Bay and San Francisco offensively for points per game, scoring 25 on average, 25 points per game. So, I mean, offensively, very, very, very similar. Very similar in a lot of rankings and a lot of statistical categories so far this season. Now, how about defensively? Yards per game. Yards allowed per game. San Francisco is still a top 10 unit. Just giving up 302.2 yards per game total. Okay, that's top 10. Green Bay's about middle of the pack. They're giving up 329 yards per game defensively. If you break it down in terms of passing yards, San Francisco 2, 4, 6. They're top 10. Give it up 197.2 yards in the air. 197.2 yards in the air. Green Bay, just outside the top 10, they're giving up, or allowing, I should say, 207.5 yards per game. Rushing defense, San Francisco is a top 10 unit, giving up 105 yards per game. Green Bay, again, middle of the pack, 119.6. Green Bay, though, has the advantage in terms of points allowed per game. Green Bay is just giving up 21.3 points per game. 2, 4, 6. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10th best in the league in terms of points allowed per game. San Francisco, middle of the pack, 22.2 points per game allowed. So, again, when you kind of look at those rankings, it just kind of gives you an idea of how these teams have performed so far compared to other teams across the area. Offensively, both these teams, so similar, so incredibly similar. And in fact, before the season started, I think a lot of our listeners, a lot of people even compared, when you look at the Packers offense on paper and you look at the 49ers offense on paper and just kind of how it all played out the first couple of weeks, saw a lot of similarities. Obviously, LaFleur is a branch from the Shanahan tree, so they run very similar concepts, very similar schemes. But when you kind of looked at it at position-wise, like, okay, Tucker Kraft, George Kittle, kind of remind you. You had at that point Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. You look at Green Bay's receiving core in that, some similarities. So there was a lot of, kind of like, okay, running games, McCaffrey and Jacobs and that. Definitely a lot of similarities over there, and at least offensively, numbers-wise, you're seeing that. You're definitely seeing that. And then defensively, yes, 49ers have a little bit of advantage in terms of limiting teams in yards, both passing and the rushing, but Green Bay has the advantage when it comes to keeping the teams, their opponents, out of the end zone. Another area, too, where both these teams are similar at is their struggles in the red zone. Okay, we've talked about this for Green Bay. Offensively, both these teams struggling to get the ball in the end zone when they get to the red zone. San Francisco is 26th. They ranked 26th this year in red zone scoring percentage, touchdown only. Green Bay, 27. So San Francisco's got a 48.78%. Green Bay, 48.72%. If you want to break it down a little bit further, is there a difference between if they're playing at home or away? Well, San Francisco is actually a little bit better on the road in the red zone than they are at home. San Francisco's 53.33%. Green Bay actually is better at home, 55.56%. So both teams, if you look at it, be like, oh, okay, so Green Bay's better at home. It's at Lambeau. Maybe better shot to score. San Francisco's actually better on the road when it comes to red zone offense. Kind of interesting with that, but just thought that was kind of curious over there. So that's kind of where everything's at. Kind of some of the main thing. I don't want to break down we could go into yards, per play and all that if we really want to get down into it. We don't have enough time for that here this morning. But where's this at? Oh. Okay, yeah, I was just kind of curious. NFL team quarterback sacked per game. Just an interesting stat here. Again, I think it kind of displays on how well and how underrated the Packers' offensive line has played this year. Green Bay's second best in terms of quarterbacks sacked per game. Buffalo is the best at 1.2. Green Bay right behind them at a 1.3. San Francisco, 2.1. 2.1. Definitely, I think an advantage for Green Bay heading into this game is they seem to be the healthier team. Not only are they playing a little bit better, but they are, by all accounts, more healthy. Brock Purdy's dealing with a shoulder injury. There's some speculation out there. Could he actually miss this game? If you're a conspiracy theory believer out there, one of the things that was noted yesterday by those who cover the 49ers is that he did not hold his usual media session today. No quarterback, or this was from yesterday, no quarterbacks did. And so that's, for some people, kind of wondering, was like, oh, does that mean that maybe Purdy's not going to be starting, or they don't know if he's going to be starting? They don't know which quarterback's going to be able to go out there. Something maybe to see, but also Nick Bosa did not practice for the second straight game. Trent Williams also is a little bit banged up, the left tackle, long left tackle. But Kyle Shanahan did say that both those players will get up to game time to be ready to play. And as we've noted, Rob Demoski, good nugget here when it comes to Bosa. Big difference. Obviously, when you got a great player like Bosa, there is going to be a difference when he's not on the field in terms of pressure rate and that. With Bosa, pressure rate's 33%, sack rate's 8%, but you take him off the field, the 49ers would rank dead last in the NFL with pressure rate, 18%, sack rate, 2%. That's according to ESPN stats and info. So it is a little bit up in the air at this point. When you look at there, this could be a huge, huge difference in terms of guys like Bosa is going to play or not in this game. If Brock Purdy's going to play or not. I think Brock Purdy's going to play in this game, and I think Bosa's going to try to play in this game. But they're banged up. They're dinged up. There's no question about it. So, in terms of key matchups in this thing, I'm going to go back to something that we've talked about, and I talked about it in the latest Green and Gold tailgate talk. If Brock Purdy's shoulder is banged up here a little bit, what has the last two offenses going up against Green Bay had success in doing? Quicker passing games, getting the ball out quick. Well, if you got a dinged-up quarterback in Brock Purdy, you're probably not going to throw a ton of deep passes. You're going to probably want to get the ball out quick so he doesn't take any unnecessary hits and such. So how does Jeff Hafley, how does this Packers defense slow down, stop a quicker passing game? Because I guarantee you Kyle Shanahan's been looking at the film and how to attack this Packers defense. And I guarantee you he's probably noticed that Detroit's had success, quicker passing game, using the middle of the field, trying to attack that zone, looking at what Caleb Williams had success doing last week. I don't know if Brock Purdy, they're going to design any runs for him since he's dealing with a shoulder injury, but getting the ball out quick and not having him take any unnecessary hits. How does Jeff Hafley counter that, especially assuming Jair Alexander does not play in the game on Sunday? Might have to get risky and a little frisky. Might have to put his corners up there and say, all right, we're going to play man. We're going to play a little bump and run. We're going to play aggressive at the line of scrimmage. It's a risk in terms of you don't want guys to burn you, but you may have to take that risk to neutralize, to slow down that quick passing game that San Francisco might employ in this game. But it's also imperative that if San Francisco is going to have some long developing plays, or if the corners do their jobs, and they are going to be aggressive, and they are going to be at that line of scrimmage, you got to generate a pressure. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark. I want Kenny Clark to take offense to what last week's game was for him. I mean, to me, one of the worst, if not the worst, performances of his career. Just because he didn't do anything against a depleted interior offensive line from Chicago. Take offense to that and dominate the line of scrimmage. If those corners are going to play more aggressive and going to play closer to the line of scrimmage, they've got to get the help from the front seven and able to collapse the pocket, put the pressure on Purdy. And if he is a little bit dinged up, I'm sorry, but it's a football game, and you gotta try to put that pressure on him. Get the pressure on him. Get some quarterback hits on him. Make him feel uncomfortable behind the line of scrimmage. You take him down a couple times. You hit him a couple times. Maybe that shoulder starts to hurt, starts to throb a little bit, and he's starting to get a little bit nervous back there when he feels a little bit of pressure. You got to set that tone early in the game, too. You got to set that tone. Make him uncomfortable back there if he is a little bit banged up. Hit him a couple times. Make him, think an extra half second or make him feel some imaginary pressure there. If he's a little bit banged up and he gets hit a couple times, let them take themselves out of the quicker passing game. If he feels a little pressure there, he might try to sidestep. He might try to scramble, move around the pocket there a little bit. That plays into Green Bay's hands. Got to win up front. Got to be physical. Got to be aggressive up there. And we know that the 49ers can still flip and run the football. If you're going to play running back in the Shanahan system, you're going to get opportunities to run. And for the most part, these dudes, they take advantage of those opportunities. Even with McCaffrey missing pretty much the whole season besides last week, San Francisco's had success in running the football, even without Christian McCaffrey in the lineup. He's played the last couple weeks here. We saw him return against Tampa Bay, but last week against Seattle, he had 19 carries for 79 yards over there. Before that, I mean, the 49ers, you had different. It's like a typical Shanahan style. It's like throw in whatever running back you want, and they're going to put up some decent yardages. You go back to his dad in the Broncos days. It was like, whatever running back we'll throw back there, We'll trade Clint Portis for Champ Bailey because we just know we've got running backs that can go out there. Whether it's Jordan Mason, that's going to give us a bunch of yards, or Isaac is going to go out there. Christian McCaffrey, they'll throw Deebo Samuel in there as well. They got dudes that are going to go in there, but they've got to stop the run. They've got to contain McCaffrey, Mason, whoever's going to be the running back in this game, have to contain him and not allow them to establish that run, to have success running the football, containing the running game, because if they're going to have success running the football, to where you've got to put that extra defender at the box and you're going to have to put up 8 guys in that box, then you employ the play action, and that's going to that's going to make that shorter passing game, or it's going to make that passing game a whole lot easier for a dinged-up quarterback in Brock Purdy. If they're going to have success running the football with McCaffrey or Mason or whoever it's going to be, it's going to make that passing game so much easier. Shanahan wants to come in here and run the ball 40 times. If he can get away with running the ball 40 times, he's said this before. And he's done it before against Green Bay, for crying out loud. But if he can come into this game and say, wow, I'm going to sit here and run the ball all day until you stop it, he's going to do it. He wants to do that. So it's up to Jeff Hafley and this Green Bay defense to say, all right, you want to run it 30, 40 times? It's going to be a long day for you. You're not going to have any success. Take offense to this defensive front. Take offense knowing that you're going up against a team that wants to run the ball 30, 35 times, and they feel like they're going to have success running that ball against you 30, 35 times. Take offense to that. Stop it, slow it down, contain it. Don't let them have any success. Okay? I want to see this group step up and dominate the line of scrimmage. Going back to the corners here, too. If they are going to play a little bit more aggressive, if they are going to play a little bit more man-to-man and such, these are going to be big-time matchups. I'm operating under the assumption that Jair will not play. So that means Keyshawn on the outside, Carrington Valentine on the outside, Bullard in as that slot nickel corner. Time to step up. Obviously no Brandon Ayuk in this game, but Juwan Jennings had himself a nice game last week. He's leading the team in receiving with 588 yards. You got Deebo Samuel, who's in there too. Kind of the gadget Swiss Army knife player, right? Kind of like Jane Reed in that. But you also have George Kittle, who says he's playing in this game. Yes, he's dealing with a hamstring injury, but if there's one guy that I'm not, if he says he's playing, I'm feeling good about, like, he's going to grind it out and such. It's a guy like George Kittle. So whose responsibility is going to be on George Kittle? Is it going to be Evan Williams? Is it going to be a linebacker? Who's going to be on George Kittle? And how are you going to not let him dominate the game in the passing game? Secondary play coverage is going to be key in this game too. Because if you do have success running the football, or let's say you get out to a lead, a comfortable lead, to where San Francisco now has to throw the ball. They got weapons they can throw to. Can these guys, can the secondary, can the linebackers, how are they going to step up in their coverage game? Specifically going up against a guy like George Kittle. And the thing is, too, with George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and those guys, I want everybody flowing to the ball if they got the ball in their hands. These guys, a lot of them, you can't take down with one guy. They're going to be physical with the football. They've got the football in their hand. They're going to be physical. They're going to take some hits. They're going to dish some hits themselves. I don't want to see soft defense like we saw a little bit last week with some of these players. It just felt like Green Bay was being out-physicaled in a lot of areas. I want this defense to come out being physical. Because you're going to get physical performances from Deebo and George Kittle and Juszczyk. Those guys, they ain't afraid to take some hits and give some hits. I want Green Bay to match that intensity. I want Green Bay to match that physical intensity. Don't back down from it. Don't shy away from it. Get after it. Offensively for Green Bay, I think it still starts with establishing a run with Josh Jacobs, that creative run game, a lot of motions. It's going to be interesting because, yes, LaFleur uses a lot of concepts that Shanahan uses. These guys know each other. They know each other well. They know what each team wants to do offensively. They know this. Okay? So, what does Matt LaFleur, as a game plan or as a game caller, what does he have to do, or what does he have up his sleeve, that maybe catches the 49ers off guard a little bit? Does he have something new? Does he have a few wrinkles up his play call sheet that can catch the 49ers by surprise a little bit? What does he got? And obviously, if, offensively for the Packers, if Bosa is playing, you're watching where 97's at. Where is he at? Whether he's going to be, Zach Tom or going up against Walker. Both those guys, though, I think Green Bay has confidence in Zach Tom and Walker because of how well they have been playing in their pass sets, in their pass protection. I think Green Bay's got a lot of confidence in those guys. Well, both those guys, let's reward your staff, reward your team with the confidence. With that confidence and having a good game and neutralizing that pass rush. Neutralizing a guy like Nick Bosa. Neutralizing a guy like Leonard Floyd. Bosa gets a lot of the attention because he's Bosa. Yes, 7 sacks. We went through the numbers. He is a huge difference maker. One guy who has benefited with Nick Bosa on that field is Leonard Floyd, who's got 4.5 sacks this year. Givens, their defensive tackle's got 3.5. But the one player on that 49ers defense that could wreck a game, that can make some big plays, that you always, always, always have to be aware of where he's at. Number 54, Fred Warner. You have to be aware of where he is at. When you think of a linebacker, middle linebacker, dude who is all over the field, sideline to sideline, making big plays, you think of a guy like Fred Warner. So if I'm Jordan Love, you're going up to that line of scrimmage, and one of the first things you're looking for is, where is 54? That dude's a playmaker. And he can become a turnover machine too. He can wreck a game. Pay attention to where 54 is at. Pay attention to what Fred Warner is doing in this game, and don't let him completely wreck this game. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup between him and Josh Jacobs in this game. Josh Jacobs, we know he wants to take a hit too. We know he wants to give a hit. We saw it against the Bears, right? We saw it against the Bears that Josh Jacobs in that slow-mo was like, come on, telling Jalen Johnson, come on, give me a hit. I want to see, I can't wait to see that matchup between Josh Jacobs and Fred Warner. But Fred Warner, my goodness gracious, that dude is one of the best, if not the best linebackers in the game. Prepare for him. Green Bay's got Jordan Love specifically, turnovers. Fred Warner, got to pay attention to where he's at too. Do not turn the ball over at all if you're the Packers and Jordan Love in this offense. Don't give San Francisco any extra opportunities on the offensive side. Don't turn the ball over. Have these 6, 7, 8 minute drives, keeping San Francisco's offense on the sideline. And if you're the Packers defense, try to get back to getting some turnovers like you were in the early part of the season. Those picks and Xavier McKinney and such. Try to create some turnovers. Try to get some extra possessions for your Packers offense. And as always, at this point in time, come away with touchdowns in the red zone. Come away with touchdowns in the red zone. Can't settle for a field goal. And that is going to do it for us on this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. And as always, don't forget to check out the Swag Cave. That link is in the podcast description. And I want to hear from you. All right, we've got the podcast hotline. You can either text us or leave a voicemail. That number is in the podcast description. But in case you need it again, here it is, 715-303-7364. If you are a hunter, best of luck. Be safe out in the woods, and leave us a message if you have any luck, and send us some photos over there too, so we can give you some shout-outs on the podcast. Till next time, I'm Dan Casper. We'll talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.